In this presentation, we will record overhead and apply overhead to both jobs and to accounts within QuickBooks Pro, QuickBooks Desktop. Here we are in practice problem number 4 related to classes and job costing. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view dropdown and open windows list. Let's take a look at our Excel sheet to see what our objective will be. We're going to be recording the overhead. Now you'll recall overhead is going to be all those types of things that we can't typically assign directly to the job. Therefore, we typically, if we were doing a full accrual basis, we would be assigning it to not the work in process, but an overhead type of account, and then using some kind of allocation method, some kind of percentage allocation, an activity base, to then assign it to the jobs, and then the jobs would be assigning it to work in process, and then we would close it out to cost of goods sold. Instead of doing that here, we're just going to take all of the overhead and basically assign it out as we go, meaning we're going to have to come up with some type of allocation method to the current open jobs basically as we go. It's still going to have some type of estimate because these items, we don't know where they go exactly in terms of the job. Therefore, we're going to have to use some type of estimate in order to do that. So that means that our estimate is going to be these percentages: 19% going to job 14, 33% going to job 15, and 48 going to job 16. Again, how would you come up with those type of percentages? You'd have to somehow determine how big one job is compared to the other jobs that are currently open that you're assigning these costs to. You also want to make sure that you keep the job open until the end of the month so that you can record things like depreciation if you need to do that, or rent, or types of overhead utilities that may not come in until basically the end of the month if you want to have the exact numbers for what the bill will be at the end of the time period. So those are just a few of the items you need to keep in mind. If you do that, then you can avoid the problem of having to first assign it to the asset account of overhead, then using an activity base, and instead kind of come up with your percentages that you should allocate as they come up to the jobs that they should apply to. So keeping that in mind, let's think about the type of things that could be typically considered overhead, things we have to allocate out. We then have first the indirect labor paid. So indirect labor are going to be things that we can't assign to a particular job. So again, if we had, a warehouse and we had a janitorial service in the warehouse, then that janitorial service should be applied to the jobs, but we don't know which job to apply it to because they clean up the whole place. And so therefore, we need to have some kind of allocation method to the current jobs that are open. Our allocation is going to be using those percentages. So on a GL side of things, all we're going to do is debit the cost of goods sold, and we're going to credit the cash, just as we've seen before. However, we're going to put it under the category of overhead to indicate that it is something that we had to use some kind of allocation method to do, and we're going to be putting it to cost of goods sold. So that's what we'll have over here, and then we're going to have to apply it to the jobs, which we've done here, which is going to be this, this, and this. In other words, we're taking that amount, the 12,000, and multiplying it times 19%, and then times the 33%, and then times the 48%, and obviously these three numbers add up to 100%, and that'll apply it all out. So we're going to do this one first. I'm going to make it a different color. These ones are going to be a different color, and we'll do this as we go. We're going to add accounts as we go as well. So I'll make this, let's make it orange. That'll be nice. All right, and now we're going to go back to QuickBooks, and that's our objective. We're then going to simply write a check, just like we normally would, and we're going to write the check for the date of the 20th. It's going to be this first one. We're going to say it's going to go to employee 2, and we're going to say it's like a supervisor or something like that supervises all the jobs in some way, or possibly a contractor or something like that. I'm not going to add up the payroll, so I'm going to quick add as a vendor, and then we're going to assign this out. 12,000 is going to be the amount. We're going to assign this to the expenses here, and we're going to assign it to the jobs. Therefore, I'm going to call this then, and we're going to call this indirect labor. And I'm going to create another account as we go. I'm going to create accounts that are going to go under the subcategory of overhead. So I'm going to call this indirect labor. We're going to set that up. It's going to be a cost of goods sold type account, just as all of our accounts basically that we've been setting up are. We're going to continue, and then it's going to be under the subcategory this time of overhead. Why am I putting it under overhead and not somewhere, not like labor or something else? because I want to indicate that this is something that we had to estimate in some way for the allocation of it. So we're going to put that into the overhead, and we can put the same description down here if we so choose. And then I'm going to say save. And there we have that. And I'm going to put this in job number 14. And it's not the full 12,000. Job number 14 has 2660, this number. So we applied out that amount there. So this should be 2660, job number 14 and 14 here. And then we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to say this is indirect labor. This amount is going to be for job number 16, the 4620. So I'm going to go here and say this should be 4620. And this is going to be for job number 15. Job number 15. And then we've got the indirect labor again, should be 4720. That should tie out. And it doesn't. So we've got the 2660, the 4620, and the 6720. So let's put this should be 6720. And this is going to be job number 16, tab, job number 16. There we have that. And the reason it's saying we're off here is it shouldn't be 12, this should be 14. This should be 14, and that makes this 0. So that ties out. So the total amount is 14, 2660, the 4620, the 6720. And then I'm simply going to copy the indirect labor, put that in the memo, just as we've done before. Let's do this again. I'm going to say, now what's this going to do? Decrease cash. It's going to record the other side to overhead in a cost of goods sold type of account and in the subcategory under cost of goods sold. So I'm going to say save and new, and we'll do this again. So save and new. This is going to be very similar transactions. I'm going to uncheck this print later button. And then if I go back over the next one we're going to do, similar kind of process for all of these. So we're going to say the indirect materials now. So we did the indirect labor, now indirect materials. Again, materials that are going someplace that we're not going to track directly to the job, like grout, small materials that we're going to basically assign out in some way using some type of estimate. Our estimate, once again, is going to be using these percentages. So we're going to be using these percentages, same journal entry, decreasing cash, other side going to cost of goods sold. We need to then support it by the job, and we're going to use these percentages to allocate it to the job. So I'm going to highlight these three. Those are going to be what we're going to use, and they add up to the 30,000. So then if I go back over to QuickBooks, I'm going to then say that we want another item. This is going to be as of the 30th is the date. So I'm going to put this as of 1/30. I'm going to say Staples is who we purchased from instead of Home Depot for the indirect, just to switch it up a bit. And this is going to be 30,000 for the total. Scrolling down, we're in the expenses area. I'm going to make a new category again, and this is going to be indirect material. So indirect material, meaning I didn't assign it directly to job. I don't want to track it to the job. These are indirect materials that we're going to allocate out using some type of percentage. This is then going to be a cost of goods sold type of account, and then continue. And that looks good. And we're going to say that it's going to be for job number 14, billable, job 14, and the amount for job 14 is not 30,000, but this 5,007. So we're going to say the amount is 5700. And then we're going to do the same thing for the indirect materials. And the amount for job number 15 is going to be the 9900. So we're going to say job number 15, 9900. Job number 15 here. Job number 15 here. Then indirect materials. And if I got it right, that number should tie out this time. Should be for the 14.4. Job number 16 looks good. So we're going to say job number 16 here and job number 16 here. Now I'm just going to copy the account. So I'm going to copy this type of account. And notice it doesn't look like I put this under the subcategory account properly. I'm going to fix that. I'm going to go to the lists up top, chart of accounts. And if I look down here, I'm looking at, I'd like it under the overhead. Here's where I put it. I didn't put a sub account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on that. I'm going to edit that account. I want to make it a sub account of the overhead. Obviously I did that on purpose so we can see how to fix it. And then we're going to say save and close. And there it is under the overhead. That's what we want. And then I'm going to go back to the check. And now you can see it's under that sub account. Okay, so I just want to copy the indirect materials, copying that, memo, memo, memo. All right, so I think that'll do. And now let's do this again. We're going to go save and new. And another type of transaction, which is going to go to overhead, similar process, is going to be if we had something like the utilities. Again, utilities would happen at the end of the month. So you'd want to keep the job open until the end of the month so that you could apply the utilities bill that's going to come to the open jobs for that month, which could kind of delay your billing process if you're not using an estimate or whatnot. But in any case, we're going to keep the utilities. We're going to do that, and we're going to allocate the same way. So the journal entry is the same. Debit cost of goods sold, credit cash. And so that's going to be the journal entry. Then we need to support the cost of goods sold account by breaking it out between this, and this, which adds up to the 12,000, breaking it out 19%, 33%, 48% to job 14, 15, and 16 respectively. I'm going to make this orange so we can see which ones we are on, and then we'll do the same kind of process in QuickBooks. QuickBooks, check. This is going to be on the 30th again. We're going to say it's going to Edison. That's our utility company. They call it Edison. We're going to say view vendor. This one was for 12,000. So we're going to say there's our 12,000 that I messed up last time, 12,000. And we're going to say this is going to be utilities. And you might want to put for the factory or for work in process as opposed to administrative or sales utilities. And then I'm going to say set that up. And I'm going to say set up. And you could actually make one utilities account and put both to it, assigning the proper class, whether it be a cost of goods sold or not. But I personally, I would rather have two different accounts so that you can have, I would rather not have one account that has both job related stuff and for cost of goods sold and non. I want all my other accounts that are not job related to be not, in the same category. I want to make a different account for them. So this is going to be a cost of goods sold type of account. And that kind of what is the differentiation. If it was another utility for the office, it would be under normal expense account, not a cost of goods sold. And then I'm going to say continue. And we're going to put this under the subcategory of the factory overhead. And then we're going to say save. And same process. We're going to say job number 14. We're going to assign the 2,282. So we're going to say 2280. And this is going to be for job number 14. Class is number 14. Then we're going to do the utilities again. And the second job, we're assigning the 3,962. So we're going to say this is going to be 3,960 for job number 14 and 14 here. Note that this should be for job number 14, 15, and 16. I'm going to keep them at 14 for all three, which is a mistake I have made here. I'm going to keep that mistake. You can put the actual numbers in if you want, or put the job 14 all the way through. We will correct the mistake when we look at the reports and see how that will look on the reports and how it would indicate to us that we have made an error. Then we're going to do this again, utilities again. That should be the correct number if I did this properly this time, which I did do. So I got 2 out of 3 proper this time, so that's good. That's not bad. I think my ratio is going to go up if I keep on doing this process. We got job 14 and 14. Then I'm going to copy the memo here, or copy this for the memo, maybe more properly said. And there's the memo. So same process. So let's see another type of overhead that could apply. We'll do this again, save and new, and yes. And then if I go back to Excel and we can say, all right, what's another kind of the cost of goods sold kind of thing? How about the rent? So the rent on, say, the factory. I'm going to unhide some cells to do that. I'm going to put my cursor on column E, left click, drag to column L, let go, right click on the selected area and unhide. Then I'm going to put my cursor on column B, going to drag to column F, let go, right click the selected area and hide those. And this is going to be our transaction here. Again, same thing. Rather than rent expense, we're going to put it to cost of goods sold. We're going to credit cash. Then we need to apply that out to our jobs to support the cost of goods sold number. We're going to break that out by the 19, 33, and 48% for 14, 15, and 16 jobs respectively. That'll be this 308, the 6600, and the 96, adding up to that 20,000. I'm going to make that orange to indicate that's the one we are on. Let's do that. We're going to go back to QuickBooks. We're going to write our checks to, I'm just going to say the rental company. That's what they call themselves. They are the rental company. And we're going to say, okay, the amount's going to be for, I believe, what, 20,000, was it? I'm pretty sure. 20,000, yes. So we're going to say that's for 20,000. And then we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to say rent, and this might be a rent on like equipment, possibly, equipment rental or something like that. And then I'm going to say tab, and you might say, well, I should be able to apply that directly to a job. You might be able to, but again, we're saying this is overhead because for whatever reason, we're going to use the percentages to assign them out. And we're going to set that up. It's going to be a cost of goods sold type of account, cost of goods sold, and continue. And we want to be a sub account of the overhead. And then save. And then we're going to do the same process again. This is good times. It's going to be the 3,800 for job 14. So 3800 for job number 14, job number 14. Then we're going to say we have the rent once again for job number 15, which is the 6,600. So 6,600, 6600 for job number 15, job number 15. Here too. And then we have the rent, again, 96. That should be the right number. If I get this right, I get 3 out of 4. Yep, that's the right number. 3 out of 4 are correct. My percentage is getting better. That's going to be job number 16 and job number 16. And not that 16, but 16, the job. There we go. Now I'm going to copy the memo once again. So we'll copy the memo for the rent and put that there, there, there. Okay, that looks good. We'll do this one more time. The next one's got a bit of a twist to it, bit of a twist. So we're going to say save and new and say yes. And the last one that we're going to do this for is going to be the depreciation. So it could be depreciation on the factory, depreciation on the equipment, something that we have to apply to the job. Now, normally the journal entry for depreciation is to debit depreciation expense and credit accumulated depreciation. This time we're going to be debiting the cost of goods sold so that we can assign it to the job because we're using either equipment or the facilities for the particular job. Then we need to assign it out. The problem here is the difference is the credit's going to be the same as a normal depreciation journal entry for the adjusting journal entry, but it's not cash. So how are we going to enter basically that credit in there? Now, we could use a check as we did last time, and that would be fine. But if you're used to just adjusting entries related to depreciation, we can also this time just use a normal journal entry. Because you'll recall last time we went to this check, and what we did is we would have to enter kind of a negative check so that it zeroes out to 0. We don't need to do that this time. So I could basically say I don't need to do the 0 check. Now, if I do a journal entry, however, the billing isn't going to show up. We're not going to make it billable, and that'll be kind of a problem. But I don't think there's kind of an issue with the billable items anyways, so we'll see that at the end. So I'm actually going to enter this as a journal. So the two ways you could are similar to what we did before, where you can make a 0 check, and then you can make the cost of goods sold. We're going to create a depreciation expense, which is going to be under the overhead, just like we did before, and then make a negative accumulated depreciation account, which will be the other side, resulting in a 0 check. You don't need to be on the items tab to do it. You're just gonna create, the debit and the credit in the expenses categories under 2 accounts. So that's one way. You could kind of mirror that, and if you do that, then you can assign the billing there, which will show up on the invoice. But again, there's kind of a problem with that. So, anyways, we'll see when we get there. So I'll show you how to set up the invoice, and I'm going to close this back out. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to go to the company tab, just like we would with a normal adjusted entry, and we're going to go to make the journal entry. The journal entry is going to be as of the 31st, and we're going to say that we have the debit. I'm going to call it depreciation on equipment, let's say. And then I'm going to say tab. We're going to set that account up, and we're going to set it up as a cost of goods sold type of account. And I'm going to say continue. It's going to be a sub account of the factory overhead. Sub account of the factory overhead, and save. And then I'm going to do the same process we would do here. Now, these are going to be debits. So we're going to do the debits. We're going to break out that 30,000 in the format of 19, 33, and 18 to 14, 15, and 16 job respectively. That is these three numbers. I'll keep them green because they're different, and maybe that'll help us. That's that 30,000. So 5,007 to job 14. So we got 5,007 here. And notice we still have the jobs here. So I have the jobs category, so I could do the journal entry. Even though I don't have the class or item category, we have the job category. So this is going to be job number 14. And we're going to do the same thing for depreciation. And that's going to be a debit for job number 15 of the 9,009. So we're going to have the debit of 9900 here. And that's going to be for job number 15. And then we've got depreciation for job number 16, which is going to be the 14.4. That'll be here, 14.4 for job number 16. And then the difference is going to go to accumulated depreciation, just like it would normally. And we don't need to assign a job to accumulated depreciation. That is a balance sheet account. So same kind of journal entry. We debit basically, in this case, the cost of goods sold type of account here, and credit the same account we normally would with that adjusted entry, accumulated depreciation. Let's record it. Let's see what happens. We're going to say save and close. Okay. Okay. And save anyway, please. And then we're going to go to the reports drop down. We're going to go down to the accounting and taxes. Let's first take a look at our trial balance. Within the trial balance, we're going to change the dates from 0101, that's 0101 20 to 12/31/20. And then there's our accumulated depreciation. And then here's all of our expense accounts here. Now, it's not, and here's our overhead type of accounts. It's nice to see now the profit and loss statement. So if I go down to the reports, we go to the company and financial, and we take a look at the profit and loss by class. And I run this for the current time period, 0101 20 to 12/31/20. This is our current time period. If I was to collapse all of this, the end column is going to be our normal, basically, column here that we would have for our profit and loss report. You can see if there's anything in the uncategorized, you want to check that. If there's anything for uncategorized, I can minimize the cost of goods sold. If there was anything in cost of goods sold in uncategorized, something's wrong. We would go in there and just kind of fix that, make sure that we have assigned everything into the category. Any other expense that was down below that might simply go to uncategorized or some other category, possibly selling an admin or type of category. So that's what we have here. And then if we open up the cost, so the cost of goods sold total is at the 674 for the current time period. If we go to the profit and loss, that matches what we have in Excel, the 674. And then if I go back over and I was to expand this, it's broken out now by the direct materials, direct labor, and the factory overhead. So we have those items. If I expand this out, then we have the direct labor per job, the direct materials, and now the factory overhead, 29,860, 3120, right? So that's going to be these amount. And it doesn't tie out here because it's a beginning balance, but the current amounts for the current time period. And then if I want to see more detail on those in the current factory overhead, I can just expand this, and now we have the detail for that. So this is a really kind of nice report that you can maneuver around in. Now, if I want to see the entire job for 14 and 15, because they were open as of the end of last year, they were still open. So I could then say, let's make this as of 1/9. And then we can see the jobs as of last time period. And then if we collapse this back down again, we can then see that for job 14, we got the 48, the 114, and the 38,860, right? That's the 114, the 48, and then I've got the 29 one. And you can see something's wrong there. So if I check it out, if I expand this, that's it. What's wrong? Notice the utilities. If I was to scan this, I'd say, well, the utilities is applied all to 14, not to 15 and to 16. So something went wrong there, because you would think there would be some kind of allocation. You could see that on the report. If I was to double click on the utilities, then notice I assigned them all to job 14, which again, I did totally on purpose here. But no, if I double click on one of these, Then I go in here, I could say, okay, this needs to go to job 15. And I'm going to tab through here, and this needs to go to job 15. And this needs to go to job 16 and job 16. And then I can adjust this and say save and close. Yes. Yes. And then I can close this back out, and then we could check it again. Now everything looks proper. Everything looks fine because that's the beginning balance. So if I was to close this out again and then check this to our report, we're going to say that we should be at the 191 for job 14. So we're at the 191, 140. We're at the 314,980. So here's going to be the 314,980. And then we are at the 757. That's the total. And then we're at the 250,880. So here's the 250,880. And then we could do our reconciliation. The jobs that are open are these three jobs. That adds up to the 757. That's the 757. And then the amount that's in the current period cost of goods sold is this amount. The difference are the open jobs as of the end of last period, the 83,000. That's our reconciling kind of item, which we can find by going 010119 to 123119, and that gives us our 83,000. So it's a nice report to basically kind of manipulate around with these items here.